good day, everybody. We are talking about where Regulation E and the ACH rules don't necessarily align and in some cases actually appear to conflict. The only thing I'm going to ask for different than what our host introduced is if you have questions at any point, you can type those into the Q&A. If you send them to all participants or to the presenter, me, then as we get those, I will go ahead, be looking for those, and answer them as we go through the session. I do prefer to do that because we're actually going to be jumping through a lot of different rules. So sometimes I find with these sessions, if we wait till the end, I may not really clearly understand what your question is pertaining to if it's from material way back in the very beginning. So as you get questions, feel free, go ahead, type them in a chat. As soon as I see those, I'll go ahead and address them. But if you send them to host only, I won't see them till the very end, as the host said, when we go into the Q&A portion. So either send them to all or send them to the panelist and presenter. All right, so another little disclaimer for today. I'm going to be talking specifically where Regulation E and the ACH rules either appear to conflict or actually do conflict. Understand that when you're looking to meet all of the obligations of your financial institution, Regulation E isn't the only place you're going to find those conflicts. You're going to find conflicts in ACH versus the UCC and versus other laws and rules and regulations and guidance. We just have to bear in mind as we go through this presentation, and something I'm going to talk about a little bit further in a couple slides from now, the ACH rules book, the guidelines and rules, think of that as an operational manual. That's the how-to. That's the rules and the do's and the don'ts of the how to process transactions in network. What you're going to find oftentimes when you find a conflict or what you perceive to be a conflict between a law, a regulation, or a rule outside of the ACH rules themselves, it's because they're looking at things from a different perspective. So, for example, Regulation E, it's looking at things from the perspective of primarily consumer protection with respect to the EFTA. The ACH rules are, again, the processing rules for what you can and cannot do in network. So we're going to be talking about a lot. I have a feeling I've got a few revelations for you that you may not have ever heard of before or don't know about how you can help kind of connect those two a little bit closely. So anyways, as we go through, again, pose your questions through the Q&A at any point. I will address them as I see them pop up. Looks like we've got a couple bio slides. Hey, you already know me, so we're going to skip that. One of the things I'm going to recommend for every financial institution, so please, if you are right now budgeting for 2017, kind of late in the year, I guess you're probably already past the budget phase, but if you are looking to grow your departments in 2017, you're looking for additional advantages, especially for compliance areas, I recommend every institution have at least one accredited ACH professional. What the accredited ACH professional or the AAP designation means is not so much that they have memorized the rules book. I have not memorized all 1,000 pages or so of the ACH rules book, even though I am an AAP. What the NACHA test to designate a person as an AAP does is it verifies that the participant, the tester, was able to apply ACH rules in daily processing. So it's not going to ask you what does an R10 mean or what does an R05 mean. Instead, it's going to say, here's a scenario. Now, how do the rules apply to this? What do you do to stay in compliance with the rules? Additionally, there's a whole other subsection to the AAP test that tests on application of other laws and regulations related to ACH transactions and vice versa. So again, really encouraging every institution have at least one accredited ACH professional, whether that's in operations or that's in your compliance area, because it demonstrates that by the passing of that test, and trust me, Not everybody passes the AAP, that at least the first time that they take it. I've known some people to take it multiple times, and that's not to scare you. It's just that they do have a very strict standard on who passes. Once a person passes that, it does demonstrate that they know how to apply the rules and they understand the rules. If you or someone in your institution is interested, I do recommend turning to your local regional payments association for training opportunities. That is going to depend on where you're at. On the previous slide in my bio, you have my email address. Email me if you're trying to determine who your regional payments association is. I'll be happy to hook you up with an individual, not just a website, but an actual person who can explain the AAP accreditation training program that they have. And then understand that if you have an AAP already on staff, that person is required to complete so many hours of training per year to maintain that accreditation. If you are an AAP, you do get 1.2 AAP credits for today's program. So all you have to have is a certificate of completion and keep a copy of your handout. And then at year end, if you haven't filed for 2016, you can do that for this year. If you have, then file it for 2017. You have to complete so many credits every year to maintain that accreditation. Webinars are a great place, obviously, to achieve that. All right, so for our objectives today, we're going to take a look at the intent and focus of Regulation E and the ACH rules. And again, look at who the audience is, where the focus is, and how the two can appear to conflict. And then we're going to take a look at some situations where the two, they just don't align. It is what it is. They do not align. And then where appropriate, I'm going to try to provide some guidance on how you respond to that or some procedures that you can implement to manage your potential risk and your loss. All right, so as part of my opening, I kind of hit on this a little bit, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. When we start looking at Regulation E versus the payment operating rules, and let's take this in general, any payment operating rules has its own standard set of processing rules. So, for example, I'm going to take it outside this ACH network. Let's go into the card network. In the card network, if a consumer has an issue with a transaction with a merchant, the card rules actually stipulate the consumer is supposed to attempt to resolve it with the merchant directly. However, under Regulation E, the minute they report it to you, it's now your problem. So that's an area where it does appear to conflict. Now let's bring it back into the ACH rules. There are a number of situations that we're going to be talking about today where Regulation E says once it's reported as an error to you, the financial institution, it's now your problem. The consumer has reported the error. It's now your problem. It's your issue to investigate and resolve. In the NACHA operating rules, there are certain obligations on behalf of the consumer if those transactions are to be processed as an in-network return. We'll dive a little bit deeper into what exactly I mean by that here in a couple of moments. So just understand that a lot of times where these two conflict isn't always in the day-to-day processing. It's in those transactions that fall outside where there is no clear guidance, directive, or even operating procedure in the ACH rules, but the consumer is still within their rights under Regulation E to make a claim. And you cannot, as a financial institution, if you learn nothing else from this webinar today, I want you to write this down. You, as an institution, cannot deny a consumer claim based on the fact you're outside of your return timeframes within a payment system. Meaning, if it is 61 days from the settlement date that I am coming into you to claim an unauthorized entry has debited my account, you, as an institution, cannot deny my claim just because you, the financial institution, are outside of your 60-day in-network return time frame. I, the consumer, am still within my time frame given by Regulation E. That is the single biggest write-up and issue with the CFPB today. So you do not want to experience those types of investigations and fines. So again, if you learn nothing else from today and you were planning on hanging up in 10 minutes, you cannot deny a claim to a consumer because you're outside of your return time frame in network, in any payment system, any of them. And you're going to see as we go through today how the two don't exactly line up with my rights as a consumer to make a claim versus your in-network return time frames. So the audience here is very different. The purpose and intent of these two, I'm going to say works, are different. The federal regulation E, in this case, is written for primarily consumer protection. It enacts the EFTA, the Electronic Funds Transfer Act. It issues the liabilities, the obligations, and the responsibilities of different participants in an EFTA, an Electronic Funds Transfer Act. If the two conflict, we'll see as we go through today exactly what I'm going to recommend that you do. It doesn't matter. It does not, again, Regulation E is not satisfied just because a payment rule is satisfied, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The ACH rules are written, think of it again as a processing manual. This is your operational processing manual. This is how you do this. This is how you format a transaction. This is how you return something. This is the deadline in network. But one does not necessarily negate the other. So when you're going for and striving for compliance between the two, you have to make sure that you're balancing the two, but at times it is going to become incumbent on your institution to make a decision. What exactly are you going to do? And at the end of this course, I think you're going to understand what it is that you need to do. Oh, come on, slide, move. There we go.